In this video, traders, we're going to look at, is HMMJ the easiest route for cannabis exposure? Stay tuned. Hey guys, a very warm welcome to you. Okay, so the big question is, I want to get exposure to the cannabis market. I want to get exposure to potential legalization, potential consumption increase, the demand, all that kind of stuff. What's the best way of doing it? We know there are some big stocks out there, but how do you pick the stock? Well, this may well be the easiest route to getting exposure to a selection of stocks that are chosen to be in this ETF. This is an ETF and it's called the Horizons Marijuana Life Sciences Index ETF. The management fee is 0.75%, and they have a variety of constituents from big cannabis companies to smaller companies. So you've got exposure to a broad section of the cannabis market. Now, does that mean it's a good buy? Not necessarily. You've still got to buy at the right price, regardless of where you think cannabis is going, or regardless of where you think about legalization, all this kind of stuff. If you're buying too high and it's not going to go any higher, you're not going to make any money. So, you know, it's not foolproof, the fact that, you know, we've got a trend on cannabis that's potentially bullish, but it might be one to put on your watch list and say, you know what, this has got a lot of stocks that I'm interested in. It makes a lot of sense. I'm going to kind of look to buy at this level. Or perhaps you're on the other side of the coin. You think this is well overcooked and you want to short it. I'm not sure if it's available to short, but if it is, then there you go. You've got a good exposure to potentially these if you look on the short side. Anyway, let's get down to it. Let's look at some of the constituents. So like I say, this is a 0.75% management fee, pretty reasonable. It's traded on the Canadian exchange. Now, one thing, you may correct me if I'm wrong if you know better, guys, but I believe if you're in the US, you cannot trade this or own this from a US brokerage. I'm not sure whether perhaps you can open a Canadian brokerage and do that. You would have to do your due diligence yourself on that, wherever you are in the world. Just because of the legal implications of it, it's not legal in a lot of countries, cannabis. So effectively, in some countries' eyes, you know, these are operating illegally. Some of these are actually growing the plant, etc., etc., etc. So there are still some hoops potentially to go through depending on where you are in the world, but that's going to be up to you to sort out if there's something you want to invest in. That would be the same probably if you wanted to invest in any of these individual companies on their own. But like I say, a good way of getting a broad exposure. So the top kind of four here, which I always look for in ETF, because sometimes you get a long list in the ETF and the bottom group are just, you know, small percentages, and you think, well, they're not really relevant at all. It's almost like they're filling up the books to make it look as if it's a bit more meaty. So always look at the kind of top 10% pluses, and there's quite a big spread actually. This is like a bit more of an interesting ETF, because even though the top four are 10% plus, even the three below it are still reasonable size. But anyway, let's get on it. We haven't got something, an ETF, where you've got something like 50% in one stock and then, you know, 20% in another, and then it just dies off after that. And you think there's no point, the 1% is just almost irrelevant, because the 50% one has to move 2% and the whole thing's swinging with it. Anyway, that's by the by, digressing. Tilray, we probably all heard of that one, 12.67% of the fund in that. Canopy Growth, again, this is the company that Constellation Brands invested $4 billion in. So this is a big player in the industry, as is Tilray. Scott's Miracle-Gro, another really interesting, super interesting stock, that one, 10.52%. Aurora Cannabis, another big player. You know, these are all big, well-known players in the industry, guys. 12.67% down to 10.04%. If they're moving, then this is going to move this ETF. Then we've got GW Pharma coming in at 8.71%. Afria coming in at 7.32%. Kronos Group, again a popular one, 6.56%. Hexo 4.12%, and some small ones coming up here. Just going to bring out the rear, 2.76% for CanTrust and 2.48% for Organigram. But these are kind of the ones that are more interesting. Now, the pros and cons of investing in one of these things is, you know, the cannabis industry at the moment seems to be kind of all going in one unison. Yes, there are some which are kind of outshining others based on investment, based on valuations, this kind of stuff. But generally speaking, it's a real news flow related investment trade at the moment. Good news comes in, all the cannabis stocks are lifting up. Bad news comes in, all the cannabis stocks are going down. So this ETF will likely do that. And if you perceive that some of these are getting super high valued, then you may not want to buy this ETF. If you say, oh, you know, Tilray's got a ridiculous valuation, I don't want that, then perhaps this ETF's not for you. You might want to go for the ones that have got a low valuation and have got a better risk reward ratio in your eyes, or whatever. You know, you can kind of work that out for yourself. But these are constituents. It's not a bad way of getting exposure if you're kind of, you know what, I want to tuck some money away, I want to buy this ETF, I want to stick it away, see where it goes in a few years' time, then perhaps this is the one for you. You're not that interested in doing that much due diligence on it. You just think it's a decent exposure. It's worth checking out, guys. The code for it is HMMJ. Available on TradingView, available on all good charting platforms. And like I say, you might have some issues actually buying it with your brokerage, but check that out for yourself. If you're interested, done your due diligence, and deciding to take the plunge one way or the other. By the way, this is never advice to do that. You need to speak to your broker and they'll say, yep, you can do it, or no, or whatever the procedure may be. Anyway, guys, that is HMMJ. Is it the easiest route to the cannabis market? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments section below. And I'll see you in the next one, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.